Good evening to you, my friend, at teacher underscore FPL, Lucian on the other side of the screen here. I'm Gabe at FPL Lens. You are joining us for the Net That Haul Gameweek 23 matchups review show. Coming to you a little timestamp here. It's about 9 a.m. here, Mountain Standard Time in Phoenix. And Lucian, how are you? What time is it? And where are you?
Well, I am permanently yellow flagged due to illness, um, such as 2024. I'm not sure if you're a superstitious person, but this year is the so-called Chinese zodiac year of the dragon, and being a person born in the year of the dragon myself, it usually means that, according to Chinese horoscopes, dragons are expected to have tough years in the year of the dragon. So
Hmm.
I'm totally ready for it, starting with, massive rank drops and things like that. Permanently shut out of the 2 million rank. And I've just come to accept it, just gotta make normal decisions and, yeah, live life.
So a couple things, and this is an interesting thing. We might go a little past an hour today just because of this intro. Because I'm glad you're taking a moment to pay homage to the Year of the Dragon. Because I too was am a Year of the Dragon. So we share that, my friend. Yeah, I didn't realize that we shared that, and yeah, but you're yellow flag permanently yellow flagged so far in 2024, as you said, and here you are, and here you've been, and the dragon is inevitable, so the dragon will persist. I'm gonna say hi to a couple people here in the chat. We got Blue Danu Joe joining us, first one in. Good afternoon to him. Nima's in the chat. Good afternoon to him. He's probably still at work. We got Jared. Hey, what's up, Jared? Combe, resident Fulham advisor, Combe, and Robin Popplewell is joining us here. So thanks for being here this morning. We are going to get right into it. Let's just take a quick look at the game week before we go into the matches themselves. So this was how game week 23 kind of panned out. Everton 2, Spurs 2, Brighton 4, Palace 1, Burnley 2, Fulham 2, Newcastle 4, Luton 4, Sheffield United 0, Aston Villa 5, Bournemouth 1, Forest 1, Chelsea 2, Wolves 4, Manchester United 3, West Ham 0, Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1, and Brentford 1, Manchester City 3. We have kind of like basically the players who hauled up here on the board from top. Phil Foden with 20 points to the bottom end of this top tier of players who hauled, which is Callum Hudson-Odoi with 10 points. Interesting that the players like Flecken are in here with 10 points as well. So Martinelli making it in there with 10 points as well. But at the top of the list, Foden 20, Watkins with a hat trick of assists, I believe. Was it a hat trick of assists that he got in addition
And a
to,
goal
to
as
the
well, yeah.
goal and a goal as well? 18 points. Cunha, my boy, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Cunha. 17. Garnacho with a surprising 16. And then Richarlison, Alex Moreno, who I really like coming into this game week. Like to see him haul 14. Rather than get right into the nitty gritty here with players like Longstaff, which nobody owns, let's get right into the games, shall we? I'm just gonna bring up so we get the order right, correct. We're not gonna display any slides here, which is gonna be you and me talking, my friend. So first match, Everton Spurs, the 2-2, surprising to some, maybe not to others. Why don't you get us into this one, and I'll bring up the stats here and go into the stats after you kind of introduce the match.
Yeah, so this whole thing about Everton right now is that there has been a mini transition that Everton has been making, so we'll touch on that a little bit. And basically, long story short, Jack Harrison, usually on the right flank, has been playing somewhat centrally, sometimes enforced due to the absence of Idrissa Gueye, I believe. And nowadays it's difficult to tell. I mean, really the question is what the result is. And Everton basically created virtually nothing from open play. You can scrape out their highlights and everything comes from set pieces, but I did look up the full match and I fast forwarded to Everton's best chance in open play, like on the stroke of half time, where DCL, I believe, had a 0.10 XG shot. And yeah, exactly as you said in the slides, cross came via McNeil on the left side. But I think we said that whenever Everton put in crosses from the flanks, DCL thrives through headers. Kind of like John McKenzie, I think, did a piece on Richarlison taking most of his shots with either his first touch or his second, and I
Yeah,
think DCL thrives in the same way. But if
yeah.
McNeil aims at DCL's feet, you're not gonna get good quality shots. It's all gonna be on the money.
Mm.
Now Spurs, it's like game week 2 all over again. I wrote a recent thread about it, and basically, I think the only difference between Spurs now and Spurs at the opening stages of the season is that what happens is you have a winger and Madison would do the running. And Madison would basically be an assist machine. So now, however, it's the roles have reversed. You have Werner right now standing in for Son on the left side, but Udogi is the one making the half space runs. So he's been, alternating between shooting and crossing from that left half space. But now Madison is being one of the targets in the box centrally. And yeah, I just cannot wait for Madison to have his goal because he had a few decent shots centrally from open play on the edge of the box. And that's basically Spurs' plan A right now because they've created virtually nothing from the right and all the finishers just line up on the right side. So I feel a bit sad for Pedro Porro owners. Yeah, because
So
the timing is good.
so how do you explain that on the right hand side like that?
It's
Because I mean
basically
on
Madison's
the left
tendency.
that's go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's just the influence of James Madison. He just links play so well from the left hand side. I mean, you just look at his assist for Richarlison, right? The second goal, I believe. He just overloads the left side and he sees that nobody's making the incisive run. He just puts the cross in himself from the left side of the penalty area on the edge of the box, and there it is, right on Richarlison's head. So he really takes charge of situations now, and he puts himself, as the second best position to receive cutbacks and score. So I do believe strongly it's a matter of time before he gets a haul. We all buy him, and we just figure out a way to bench him for the blank and move on.
Yeah, that's I think it's a bit of a tough one. It's interesting what you say about Everton and open play because Everton did have 2.62 xG in this one compared to less than 1 for Spurs. But like you said, I think that's a little bit misleading because if you are watching the game, Spurs couldn't deal with Everton and Tarkowski in particular crowding Vicario. They didn't know how to deal with that, and that was surprising to me. The other thing is I've often been critical of Spurs' right side because it's either Brennan Johnson or Kulusevski. And I think they slow Brennan Johnson isn't there yet. I don't know what his potential is, and Kulusevski, like we've talked about before, always slows the play down. That's all he can do, right? So there's no time even for like one Madison might be conditioned to go to the left because of Harvey Barnes. But two, if that's where if there's no time for Porro to get field and Kulusevski's gonna probably lose the ball or make you go backwards again, then he's naturally gonna look to that left. It's interesting what you say about Madison as a central target in the box. I did see him get in there, but I don't know that he was the target. I'll have to look into it a little bit more, or if he was just too slow to be kind of clinical in that. But definitely an interesting one going forward. I would have definitely started with Madison on my wild card. Had him on my wild card if it weren't for the blank. Now, given the way things have panned out, who would you predict is going to be? You predict Madison is going to be a better asset than Richarlison? Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
of course. I mean, Richarlison, no doubt, is going to be good. I just feel that like everyone's gonna make a firm decision now. What do you expect out of your 7 million midfielder, right? Are you expecting, something of the nature of a Raheem Sterling where he hauls for a game and he gets nothing for like 3 to 4? Are you happy with 15-2-2-2? you know? Or do you want a 7 million midfielder who has the consistency of an 8 million midfielder like Diogo Jota, someone who's like undervalued permanently? I think once you've set those expectations, then you can really tell whether you want a Madison who gets like an assist and 2 bonus points, for as an example, versus someone more explosive like Richarlison who will get 2 goals out of nowhere and then be really frustrating thereafter.
I th- we'll see how this plays out. I do agree with you. Madison is the standout pick to get at Spurs, or will become that soon because he has just more routes to points, and then bonus as well. But I don't think I think you get Richarlison while he's in form, and I don't know that it'll be like a explosion and then two. Right now, while he's in form, I think he'll be like 6-6 to 12, 6-4 to 15, something like that. So I think he's quite consistent right now while he's in form, and an obvious buy if it weren't for the blank. Let's move on to the next matchup here, and it is Brighton against Palace. I'll bring it up here. So this, yeah, interesting bounce back by Brighton, right? With 4-1, with 4 goals on 1.43 xG for Brighton. Palace, they get their goal. Mateta scores in the 71st with 0.3 xG total in the game. Kind of Brighton domination. Palace blocking shots, throwing themselves according to the stats. But what did you see in this game? Oh, actually, before you go into it, let me just shout out BW Splitta. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Really nice of you. Oops, that's Nima. K7's in the house, so is Jack. So thanks for joining us.
Hey,
Talk to us about this one, Lucian.
we've got to set context. Palace rested Olise as well as Eze. So Palace were a shadow of the side that beat Sheffield United 3-2. Shadow of a side. I think they feel that Ayu and Schluck behind Mateta up front. It's a real championship quality side, so to speak. And I think what's notable though, I do feel that is that with Palace being that inferior, probably conceding domination from the get-go, Brighton's counter press became way more prominent than it needed to be. And I think that's something we've not talked about for a very long time, how Brighton actually have a coordinated press. However, still, the focus is on our star boy, Pascal Gross, right? You mentioned in your slides that he would fill in the area left behind by Joao Pedro, but, we can't predict that Joao Pedro will miraculously recover from his knock, was it? I think I couldn't remember what it was, but
It was a knee.
oh yeah, he started. So um
Yeah, he's third on my bench because it was a knee. It looked like a sprain out at least 2 weeks. So he's
yeah,
third on my bench. He comes in and he scores, but he was limited in his movement. And I kind of like made a quote about this where like Pascal Gross did move into those spaces because Pedro couldn't get in all of them.
yeah. So that's the thing about Brighton, right? One way or another, they will get you points. And I mean, I'm trying my best not to be surface level because the way Brighton secured their win was very atypical of their usual style. The verticality did not contribute to their goals. I do believe that this is one of those results that papers over the cracks that they've been having in terms of finding the balance in their midfield, from ball winning without Carlos Baleba all the way to upfront where they continue to rotate their attackers. And I wrote this in a thread recently as well. A lot of this comes down to getting Bonanote bedded into a starting 11 role as their default number 10. This is something for sure. I'm very, very sure now that De Zerbi is having, like, in terms of vision. where he wants to revolve his side around this extremely young Argentinian midfielder that is basically a lookalike with Phil Foden. They really move in very similar ways, very quick accelerations sideways, and yeah, with some ability to pop up in goal scoring situations. It's just a matter of when he finds his finishing feet, and you know, yeah, probably end of this season. That's when he'll start to come to life. But
So I have a
yeah,
question for you. Because right now, one thing that's been working for João Pedro, in my opinion, is his synergy with Danny Welbeck, right? So if Buonanotte comes in at that number 10 position, what happens up front?
they've actually played around Buonanotte. So Buonanotte would basically, drop into that typical number 10, and Pedro goes left half space, Welbeck goes right half space. They actually play around him.
No, but you can't fit them
Buonanotte,
all, right? What my point is,
um,
when Mitoma comes back, if you have
yeah,
Mitoma on the left, Buonanotte in the middle, whomever, maybe Fati or whoever on the right, um, and then you can only have one up front, right?
yeah, that's true. Honestly, I think that's the biggest puzzle. They've still not settled on a number 9 because
Hmm.
it's not going to be Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro is way, way better on the left side as one of the two center forwards. So yes, we will definitely see an identity crisis that Brighton will go through once all their wingers are back. But for now,
Mhm.
everything's pretty central to me.
So the way you see it is João Pedro on the left with Welbeck up front,
Yeah.
but João Pedro obviously making that diagonal run inside to
Hmm.
join Welbeck and filling the spaces that Welbeck's creating for him.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And yeah, I didn't expect as a or Elise to start here. I'm surprised actually. Elise came on and got injured again, right?
I'm not monitoring Palace too heavily because,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, for me, they're still trying to go through a few changes. I believe
yeah,
they fielded a brand new right back. I can't remember his name. But yeah, Palace are going through changes. So
yeah.
I'm just
Elise
waiting.
came on for 10. Elise came on for 10 minutes, and he got injured again. Of course, I mean, if he wasn't fit to start, it's crazy that they threw him out there. So, we can move on to the next one. I think we're going on to Burnley 2, Fulham 2.
Hey,
Um, What a collapse by Fulham. I was disappointed. Combe, I don't want to rub this in. Maybe you can kind of give us some context there in the chat if you would. Burnley 1.81 xG, Fulham 1.51 xG. Looks like across the board, statistically speaking, at least a kind of an even game. But I'm curious to see what you think. I'd like some insight on Burnley specifically. Obviously, with the thought that they face Liverpool in game week 24, and then Liverpool have the double. So Liverpool are on many people's minds. Liverpool assets are on many people's minds. Um, I still personally think that Burnley's right side is weak. I'm curious to see what you think. My boy Rodrigo Muniz started. He gets his goal that I thought he would
yeah.
get many weeks ago. um, so that'll be interesting. Palinha there with the goal as well. Talk to us. What do you see here?
Well, Palhinha's goal, if I'm not mistaken, was off a set piece, so I'm not too particular about that.
Yeah.
But yes, this is a tale of two halves, and the first half was dominated by Muniz's movement, creating space for Andreas, who played the number 10 role again. But obviously, I think Fulham away from home in particular, they struggle to come up with an identity in terms of how to win games. So in this particular case, Burnley being extremely compact and ball dominant played into Fulham's hands where they just put one long ball forward and Fulham have multiple targets running into space. Having said that, we do have to pay respect to Vincent Company's transfer policy because they finally have a competent number 9 suitable for the Premier League, and his name is DD Fofana. He came on as a substitute last game against Man City, and this coincidentally was right before they sold a veteran, Connor Roberts, to Leeds. So it's very clear that company prefers Vitinho at right back. So call it what you will. Because now Burnley too have a new right back. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Asignon is pretty good. He's pretty assertive down in on counter attacks as well. It might be a fresh blood thing, trying to impress, but yeah, I'm very very startled by how quickly company has decided to take faith in new signings. But still, yes, it's all about David Fofana. I mean, I've watched this guy since he came on as a sub for Chelsea. I forgot which manager it was he was under, but yeah, Fofana is an out and out number 9 who will shoot, and he's basically a faster version of J. Rodriguez. Um, yeah, I'm just looking forward to him actually getting goals because they've relied on individual dribbling abilities of Foster and Amdouni and Odobe for way too long. So Fofana, as someone who receives passes, who wants to receive passes, is like a breath of fresh air because Burnley creates so much space and they've got no one to finish off their chances. So for once, Burnley have more than a dribbling threat, and that's how they got their comeback against Fulham.
Quick question on Laurent Assignon. Does he fix Burnley's weakness on that right hand side? Is he like I saw like because I didn't watch I didn't watch this game, but I saw some highlights. I'm looking at heat maps and stuff, and he got an assist, but he doesn't seem like he's necessarily an attacking right back.
No, he's not. He's not.
He's
He's not.
a
The
right
assist
back.
was off the counter. He transitioned off a corner from the right side all the way down the left, and he received the ball on the left, and he got his assist from the left side. It was literally his only touch in the entire left half
Right.
of the pitch. Yeah. So
So, yeah, and I'm looking at that here. So he's like a true right back, yes.
yeah, he's not a
So
converted one like Vitinho.
interesting. So that's I mean that was their weakness. That was the I've been trying to highlight. So
No,
that
it
might
means
not be
that
a
their
weakness,
weakness is their left because Charlie Taylor's still injured. They
right?
refuse to play Lacroix on the left, so Vitinho actually moves over to the left. It's just a matter of time before Vitinho gets taken advantage of on the left side.
Okay, so now the weakness is that left hand side. So if you are targeting Liverpool's assets from Liverpool, I guess
Yeah, they're right.
who plays on the right for Liverpool?
Uh, the usual Salah fit, you know. We'll talk about it. Save it for later. Save it for later.
Anyway,
Save it for later.
sorry, I'm I'm going on a tangent here. Fair enough. Let's see if Combs says he only turns up for one half. The substitution was pivotal, and Trafford was very good. Yeah, Trafford I think had like 5 saves or something like that. We can move on to the next exciting one here. Newcastle 4, Luton 4. Newcastle like barely hanging in there with Luton this game week. XG quite similar, 2.4 for Newcastle and 2.36 for Luton. Ball possession quite similar. Newcastle had 19 shots in the game. This is a bit of a wild one that I caught like intermittently. What can you tell us about this one?
Well, my biggest concern, especially from the perspective of a potential Anthony Gordon owner, is how he would handle his recovery from injury because when you come back from a hamstring injury, it's extremely easy to pull it again, right? And there were 3 particular scenarios that I felt he passed in terms of physical fitness. The first, where he received the ball off the counter on exactly the halfway line on the left hand side, and he just sprinted past his marker with the ball. I think that's a very good gauge of running 30 to 40 yards with the ball. And then he reaches the box on the left hand side, 1v1 against Osho, and he doesn't actually try to go around him on the outside on the left, and instead he actually cuts inside Osho and he shoots at Kaminsky, where I believe it was Longstaff that got the rebound. That was the second goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I do believe that yes, Gordon should be back to full fitness now. And my only issue is that we all know that Gordon is underwhelming as a number 9. But Callum Wilson came on, right? So that's good news. I am predicting a bigger shift tactically though because of the return of Harvey Barnes. Absolutely love that
Yep.
guy. I think we've talked about this a couple of times now. Luton have an issue between the lines. They've not solved it. They've not solved it. So the question is who from Newcastle would take advantage, right? Because Newcastle don't have an out and out number 10. Instead, they pushed Longstaff forward. So I know your slides predicted that Miley would get something between the lines, and he did, but Longstaff stole the show in the first half before
Yeah.
Miley switched over to the right side because Longstaff pushed out wide a little bit. And Miley got his assist from the right side anyway. Even though it's like a counter press type of assist. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I think for me though, there are various candidates we have to take note of in terms of who will occupy the playmaker role. Because when Newcastle get frustrated, when Miley and Longstaff sort of peter out, right, because Luton took the lead, Bruno Guimaraes attempted to step up, and my goodness, Bruno Guimaraes is really assertive when he wants to be. uh, I wish he took charge of games more, but that's just a personal opinion. He just operates in way too many spaces. So instead, Harvey Barnes could be the one drifting in from wide areas, picking up the ball, doing much better and much more effective than Almiron or Jacob Murphy, who stick to the flanks way too much. Yeah, Harvey Barnes is definitely one to look out for because that equalizing goal from that area is something we all have missed so much. Yeah, Newcastle
Yeah, but
genuinely can.
just as Barnes is getting healthy, then Gordon goes down with that ankle injury. I guess he's in a protective boot right now, and my sense is that they say currently being assessed. I don't know what the details are, but if they have to wait for swelling to go down to perform tests, then it's bad, right? So Gordon, as they get healthy, they also get injured. I was looking forward to Harvey Barnes on the left hand side and Gordon on the right hand side. That would have been a lot of fun. But yeah, and Dred said here in the chat, it's like we need to recalibrate our thoughts on Newcastle, and I Nima agrees. I agree with that as well. But I would say like just in the sense of we have to stop measuring them by their potential and just understand that they are so ravaged with injuries and changes that they will just be inconsistent. And I agree with you. I think a more assertive or dominant Bruno Guimaraes would make them more consistent. But losing just key players and Joelinton is such a massive loss for this team that I thought they would struggle. But I didn't think that Luton could snag that opportunity the way they did. And Joe comes in. Is Luton a good
Yes, I
team now?
was. Yeah, thank you.
Do
Yes,
we need
thanks,
do we
Joe.
need to recalibrate our thoughts on Luton as well as
Just
Newcastle? So yeah.
just their wingers, just their wingers. I think
Hmm.
we've got to take Alfie Doughty seriously now, because he is a
Hmm.
goal threat as well as an assist threat. But Doughty's more stable. I think if you can predict who will start on the right, you'd get a lot, you'd get nicer, more explosive returns. I think, first and foremost, right, we have to acknowledge that both Adebayo and Morris are starting in the same 11 again, but they're not doing it with Morris as the 9 and Adebayo as a supporting number 10. It's flipped. Morris is the roaming number 9 who's like at the far post setting up Adebayo for finishes. Finally. And yes, Adebayo is an absolute beast, but no need to talk about that. It's more of the fact that they have quite a lot of variety down the right hand side because Ross Barkley is starting to come onto his own, and well, this is partially down to Newcastle's flaws as well, where yeah, Dan Burn can be beaten. Obene just went past him like nobody's there. Same thing with Trippier. Trippier can still be attacked, and Doughty went past Trippier easily, virtually untracked. So yeah, Newcastle's flank weakness is still there, and somebody like Doughty and Obene can both take advantage.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that right side with Barkley and Nogbene. It has changed them. Hold on. Okay. Cool. I think we can move on to the next one. This one was I have to admit this was a surprise for me. Aston Villa 5, Sheffield United nothing. I didn't expect that kind of abject performance from Sheffield United at home. Villa 2.19 xG, 5 goals. Sheffield United 1.48 xG, 0 goals. I kind of expected that. I expected the XG to be the result in this game. More like a 2-1 kind of deal, not other rather than a 5-0. What can you tell us about this one?
To be fair, Sheffield United did have a goal disallowed in injury time of the second half. But yes, I am just more impressed that you could predict Sheffield United playing a back three in the first place. Sheffield United under Wilder had been playing a back four the entire time. They
Mm-hmm.
put Trusty as a makeshift left back. They put Bogle on the right, and this time round, they brought Trusty in, playing the outside centre back again, and they brought in Norrington Davis as their left wing back, and they kept Bogle on the right. That was a bad idea. Norrington Davis, yeah, was so subpar. Like, it's okay for wing backs to be more advanced than their three centre backs. It's more of when you have. Okay, so this is where you compare Sheffield United's back three against Luton's more established back three, right? Because arguably they have the same strength. Luton's back three are so assertive that even though once in a while they get beaten for pace, for majority of the game, they can snuff out number nines. They just go aggressive and they don't even let number nines receive the ball. They are like literally foot behind the attacker's foot. Um, Whereas for Sheffield United, you watch all the goals that Villa scored against them. Ahmed Hodzic is like 2 yards behind the other two centre backs playing Ollie Watkins on side. He has no clue. He's like literally confused when the ball is all the way at Villa's centre backs, right? Not sure whether to face the ball to intercept it with headers or whether to turn around and mark Watkins to be in a deeper position. It's yeah, so I think it was um McGinn's goal, right? Where Konza played this extremely beautiful long ball, but it was, within interception range of Ahmed Hodzic. He's turning away from the ball while looking at the ball, and it just flies past him, even though it's literally next to him. Yeah, Sheffield United are in transition, and they're going to be very, very bad while they are in transition. It's not a case of trying to, yeah, fit Brooks into the side anymore. They've just got to figure out whether they want to go back to their 4-5-1 and basically not score goals, or do they want to try and actually work out a back five system?
I mean, I think Wilder had the right idea in switching to a back five against Villa. It had worked at Villa Park, right? And I know he had been in a back four, um, and I wasn't sure of that back five either, but it made sense and it didn't work. Like you said. Now, Ezri Konsa went down with an injury, so definitely stay tuned for the matchups show. I believe it is at a new time. It'll be on Thursday rather than Wednesday. That was I had to change that schedule, but Craig will be on, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how we may see Villa resorting to a back five now, with that Konza injury. So and we'll see how that changes them. So so that yeah
Gives me
that'll be
incentive
an
to hold on
interesting
to
one.
Medicash for one more week.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna play. Um, so let's see. Next one we got here is Bournemouth 1, Forest 1. So they're still looking for Solanke. He's on a milk carton somewhere, missing somewhere. I believe there's a reward for anybody who finds him. XG on this one 1.27 for Bournemouth is 0.53 for Forest. Let's get through this one rather quickly.
I talked about what happened when Crystal Palace rotated their side earlier. A 1-1 is what you get when both sides rotate their best players out. Oh man, when Tavernier doesn't start for Bournemouth and when Montiel doesn't start for Forest, everything goes. Um, majority of both sides' best chances were from set pieces. So it was just a battle of set pieces. And I mean, I tried to look for things as much as possible from open play. I think so what I will do is I'll talk about the issues that both teams have instead of their strengths because there weren't a lot of good points. First things first with Bournemouth, they have rotation issues where they started with Clivert and Semenyo. Semenyo just coming back from AFCON, and then they subbed both off to bring on Sinistera, if I'm not mistaken, Sinistera and um Tavernier, that's the one. So they have a lot of competition fighting for those front few slots, and thankfully Billing got sent off. So at least by default we should assume that Christie and Scott would be first choice in central midfield. Yeah, Bournemouth have way too much competition right now, and Irola's probably struggling to figure out what is his first 11. Now as for Forest, without the
Christian
legendary
Cook
Chris
or
Wood.
Christian Scott?
Well, I prefer Christie and Scott. Cook started this game, uh, but I do feel that Bournemouth have had the better results when Christie and Scott both started.
Okay.
So yeah, it really depends. Because Cook's like the stalwart, But yeah, they should transition out of him to have Scott be in the team more often with Christie alongside him.
Okay.
Yeah. So Forest, oh, Forest. Okay, so no Montiel, Dominguez started, and this is a bit disappointing from Nuno's perspective, at least, because there was a hint of transitioning to rely on somebody like Danilo, who's much more assertive and has much more flair with the ball. But yeah, they just reverted to type. Morgan Gibbs White in the center, Langa on the right, Callum Hudson-Odoi on the left, and they barely created anything in open play, really. They rely on Bournemouth mistakes more than anything. So I would say the big lesson from this, especially since they played Nuno Tavares at left back, is that they have so little attacking potential without the legendary Chris Wood that they are a very good team to target, especially away from home for clean sheets. Yeah, genuinely mean that.
So you think the return of Taiwo hurts them?
At the moment, yes, because they have no supply. Yeah.
They have Chris Wood supply. Like
Maybe.
Taiwo, and I think it's I think you have to play different with differently with Taiwo. And I don't Taiwo hasn't played with Nuno yet, has he? I think this is
Well,
their first game together. So interesting to see how that adapts. Let's move on to a game I'm sure you're eager to discuss. Chelsea 2, Wolves 4. Chelsea 1.74 XG, Wolves 2 flat. And I haven't heard many people say that it wasn't deserved for Wolves. So
well, I think it's more of okay. So there was a period sometime towards the middle of last season where I think there was an international break and Wolves were on a really bad run. So they had, Chelsea, Brentford, and Liverpool in a row up next. And I was telling people as a Wolves fan, if I could get 1 point out of those three games, I'd be really happy. And we beat all three teams. Yeah, we beat Chelsea 2-1, we beat Liverpool 3-0, and we also beat Brentford away. So I think we have a knack of coming across these sort of teams when they are in their worst moments. Because Chelsea right now, not in a good spot despite having their first 11 come back. I think the result flatters Wolves quite a bit because there was a Cunha penalty and there were two deflected shots. So on another day, I would argue that we wouldn't have scored 4 goals. At least Cunha wouldn't have had a hat trick. But Neto is real. Well, Pedro Neto's threat is real, and we have to give credit for him. Literally covering the entire final third of the pitch, just trying to dribble past people. I'm not gonna say that there isn't rhyme or reason But I will say that Wolves right now are definitely appreciating the fact that Ryan Inuri is back from AFCON. That I can say. Because wow, like we've not had a presence so strong on the left ever since Huang. And while Huang is still out there fighting for Korea, yeah, it's the same thing, right? Wolves break down the right side through Pedro Neto and whoever, and then you have Cunha waiting near the penalty spot and Ren Inuri crashing the box from the left side. So differential Inuri, yes. But stable template pick Pedro Neto, yes.
It seems to me that the template pick will be Cunha. I mean, I know he's a forward, so but Cunha is obviously with that with the hat trick there, he'll be popular. I do agree. Like Neto has more roots to points again as creator, as finisher, and all of that. But what can you tell us like what's so you said Chelsea they're getting all their players healthy, but so why aren't they why are they in a crisis, I guess? I don't know that this is the worst they've been, so but why are they so bad?
Well, first and foremost, they've not figured out their central midfield, right? They've got like 6 players fighting for 2 central midfield slots, and they've decided to field Enzo, Caicedo, and Gallagher, but with Gallagher as the number 10. So, you've got that big bustling, messy pasta tangling of legs up front, full of energy, with Cole Palmer on the right, Sterling on the left, and Nkunku up front, all like sort of trying to get out of the way, but not really. So honestly, when Cole Palmer scored the first goal for Chelsea, like that incision from Caicedo to play the through pass all the way from midfield, I mean, we have to appreciate the space that Gallagher creates, But
Hmm.
to expect a defensive midfielder like Caicedo to find Cole Palmer running behind defenses on the right is not something people will expect to see. So arguably, Cole Palmer is in his second best position, and Pochettino moved him into the number 9, to preserve Nkunku's fitness later on. They brought off Sterling, they brought off Gallagher. I think they brought on Chukwuemeka as well as Mudrik, and yeah, that was when they absolutely went to to shit. Um, I can't. Yeah, I think, but there's a bright spark. Chilwell's runs down the left are definitely there, and they did trouble Wolves a little bit. Just waiting for the right delivery and the right finisher, because that is arguably the best type of Chelsea we want to see. We as FPL managers want to see. We want a creator centrally, Palmer, feeding Chilwell on the left, finding a finisher in the middle, whether it be Jackson coming back from AFCON or Nkunku or even Palmer himself. I think that's
Okay,
like the Chelsea we want to see.
fair enough. Let's move on to another. I guess it's not surprising. Like when two teams are just totally random and do nothing in open play, then nothing can be surprising. Manchester United 3, West Ham 0. Manchester United 3 goals on 0.75 xg, and West Ham 0 goals on 1.4 xg. I have to admit I didn't watch this game. I will go back and watch highlights. I'm not going to go back and watch the game, but I'll go back and watch highlights because um there's a point of contention, I guess. People weren't happy with us calling Manchester United constipated, and then them scoring 3 goals. But how'd they do it? Did they take a laxative?
A picture paints 1,000 words, and really the
Hmm.
picture you have to look for is exactly the moment when I think Garnacho scored his second goal. And basically brought he brought Hoyland with him, he brought Menu with him, and the three of them sat on the bench with the Old Trafford crowd roaring behind them, and they just sat there, three
Mhm.
of them, just smiling, absolutely wholesome, and that was it. That is it. Like just them with the fans behind them, emotionally charged, and the three of them just smiling, completely serene. That is really, a good look for Man United. I'm finally glad to say, because they had Manu partner Casemiro in midfield. Whoa, haven't said that name in a while. And
Mhm.
they've so as a result, Garnacho mainly play on the right, Rashford on the left. So everything you mentioned, it's there. Rashford is on the left, Bruno is the 10. Um, and Bruno is now stepping on Rashford's toes, so they're kind of like overlapping a little bit. But yes, the biggest
Mm.
beneficiary really has been Garnacho. Mm, I would say though, in terms of things that are improving for Man United, Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw is definitely making much better runs down the left hand side. They did it against Wolves quite well. We didn't get to talk about that last week, and yeah, it surfaced against West Ham United. Um, I think it also helps that Garnacho, not being a right winger by default, has the freedom to drift over to the left side. And in case Rashford and Bruno are fighting for space, Garnacho is the one that picks up the pieces. Uh, if you ask me to choose a 7 million attacker that has form, I would prefer Højlund over Richarlison, personally. I just look at the way both strikers score their goals. Richarlison needs a supply line. Højlund makes it all himself. If I were to pick a striker that is based on form, that's easy to sell when he loses form, it would be Højlund. Because the last thing I want is to keep Richarlison, and Richarlison would have an endless supply of beautiful through balls and crosses played for him, and he just misses them all. Then I'd be like, oh, this is Darwin 2.0. Do I keep or do I sell? Yeah, I hate
It's
that
it's
dilemma. So yeah.
it's hard to measure them on the same stake. One's a midfielder, of course, and one's a forward. But I take the other view. I prefer the forward who needs supply and has James Madison behind him than to the forward who needs to create things on his own and has, I mean, all good vibes aside, still a dysfunctional team behind him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and I think that's basically what the stats are saying. I do think I agree with you. Luke Shaw changes this team. The whole team will transform with as Luke Shaw gains form. Um, I it baffles me that left side isn't firing yet. I really thought it would in this game, especially against a poor Vladimir Sofal. Um, but Garnacho, like if when Garnacho scores, when you're riding the back of Garnacho, you're riding chaos. This is not design. this is this is a kid, like, and on pure vibes, like you said, and you can't help but like join him in that, and that's a lot of fun. But in terms of patterns, if we're looking for patterns to take into the next one, what the pattern you're going to predict is, I predict more chaos from Garnacho. Like, that's not something that I would hitch my wagon to, I guess.
Garnacho is basically the attacking version of Martin Brentwaite, who continues to get returns sitting on people's third slots of benches. And people go like, oh yeah, I have, Brentwaite on the bench, third, third slot. I
Lucy
never expected him
twisting
to
the
come on, but
knife.
I'm proud that I have, points on the bench I never got. Same thing. If like, have been certain content creators that have benched Phil Foden 20 points, right? And
Oh,
I just go like, you know. But if people told me, oh, they bench Garnacho, I'd be like, okay, I guess I understand, and it's great. I'm pretty sure on another day, think about the 50-50 of fielding him, and yeah, it's okay. Your conscience is clear if you bench Garnacho's 17. It's okay.
everything's okay. We'll move on to the next one, and the one Nima's been waiting for. He's still in the chat, waiting for us to get to this one. Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1. Arsenal with 3.5 xG, Liverpool with 0.37. I think this is the highest xG against Liverpool in a long time. I don't know how many years, but a long time, so they say. Yeah, I want to let you. I'm just going to let you dive right into this one. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say, including Allison.
Mm. Okay, so first things first, I'd like to debunk that XG myth because we have to understand, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, XG may have the same name, but XG is collected by different websites and different companies and therefore different models. The XG that Gabe just quoted came from FODMob, who create their own model.
No,
However, it's only the
so,
highest. Sorry, what was
SofaScore.
it? Oh, okay,
SofaScore.
because FODMob gave the similar thing. But immediately, right, there were plenty of Arsenal fans that went, that can't be right. Like 3 is absurdly low. And there were times, I think immediately people recalled the 7-2 that Liverpool suffered against Aston Villa. So that is something that people instantly recall to. And if you look it up, the XG conceded by Liverpool against Aston Villa was 3.72 on one website and 3.08 on Understat. FODMob had not existed at that time when XG was created. So it's, we just have to be aware that XG is XG. But when we are talking about the numbers quoting from XG, you have to make sure that the source that you quote XG from is consistent when you make comparisons. Otherwise, you will run into trouble. There are so many factors that go into XG that, we can flip the argument literally, right? Depending on which side we take from. Okay, now, as for the match itself, I'd like to open with a question. If you have a game between two titles challenging sides, theoretically, would you bank on their plan A strategy, or do you think it all goes out the window and they use something special?
That depends on the manager.
Right?
To quit it depends on the manager. Really quickly to underscore your point, I think I said 3.5 XG or something like that from
Yes,
SofaScore.
correct. 3.5.
Understat has it at 2.85.
Yeah.
The massive difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it depends on the manager. I mean, but if, like, obviously these managers involved, Arteta's gonna do his plan A unless he faces City. I would say then he might change it. And Klopp is gonna do what Klopp does.
I kind of wish that Nima were live now because Nima would probably get this. There have been multiple sources of these floating around on X, especially, where Liverpool actually paid homage to Arsenal when they beat Arsenal 3-1 in the FA Cup or something like that. And they said that Arsenal came out and played a 4-2-2-2, and we nearly couldn't cope. We won, but Klopp thought he barely deserved it. And so this time round, this last weekend, Arteta whipped out the 4-2-2-2 again and completely overran Liverpool's midfield three. Because if you think about it, right, we know Liverpool's style and formation and identity. If you play Curtis Jones, Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, yes, and McAllister, right, and you look ahead and you see Declan Rice and Jorginho, what's your instinct as a Liverpool player, right? So in this particular matchup, Liverpool's two central midfielders were sucked up to Arsenal's two defensive midfielders, and that left McAllister 2v1 outnumbered against Kai Havertz and Odegaard dual 10s. This was why Odegaard had so much space in the first half, because McAllister literally had no idea whether to mark Kai Havertz or Odegaard. And it was just fitting that the first goal itself from Arsenal was McAllister trying to mark Kai Havertz, and then he saw that Odegaard had so much space. He moved up to Odegaard, the ball immediately played behind him. Kai Havertz was 1v1 against Edison. So it's really fitting. It's really, really fitting that Arteta fielded a special formation, this 4-2-2-2, that we rarely see, not dependent on their right at all. And it was fortunate enough that Saka was there to pick up the pieces. But I think we have to give Arteta some credit for having this in his back pocket as his ace in the hole. And Liverpool had nearly Liverpool could mitigate the damage, but they never really had a solution to come back, with a win. So, but everything you mentioned here did come to fruition in some sense. It just happened after the damage was done for Arsenal. Because really, Jorginho played a marvelous game. I'm sure even Nima would agree to that. Jorginho from deep midfield just found Havertz
Yeah.
or Odegaard time and time again in the first half. Yeah, and so that's how it goes.
Yeah, and what that's I'm glad you mentioned that, and I also like the disguise. So he disguised it as a 4-3-3. He disguised it as a plan A. Oh, Havertz is playing the 9. It's like, no, Havertz is not playing the 9. And he and true to form, he didn't get in the box that much, right? Like and it was all in the center mid area. He did drift to the left, that his far post fade that he loves to do. He did do that from that center midfield spot. So yeah, I thought Arteta owned Klopp in the tactical battle, and you're right, they couldn't adjust, and it wasn't like there's a narrative that it was a personnel problem, that it was like missing Salah and Darwin injured, and I don't think that's what it was. I think it was more schematic than personnel based. 56 minutes, getting to the last one here. Brentford 1, Manchester City 3. Manchester City with an XG of around 2, Brentford an XG around 1. Brentford get the first goal here, and then Manchester City proceed to kind of like just own the game after that. So what can you tell us here?
Well, in typical prediction fashion, obviously we already knew that Brentford would whip out the 3-5-2. The question was how the 3-5-2 would attack Man City, right? You mentioned that the wingbacks would attempt to look for the forwards, but really the wingbacks barely did any attacking. With Brentford, especially, if you did not watch a single minute of that game, you would expect Brentford to line up, like clog up the midfield, put everyone in center, and be extremely compact, concede the white spaces and whatnot, and just like tell Man City, "Come at me, bro. I'm ready for your crosses." That was not at all the sort that Brentford defended. In fact, the three central midfielders they had in front of their back five, Yanel, Norgard, and I forgot the third guy. It might have been Baptiste. The three of them pushed out. They pushed out because they knew Kevin De Bruyne would drift. They knew Phil Foden would drift in from their wide positions, and they really made it a point to mark Gvardiol or Walker whenever they drifted up front. That was why Brentford conceded a lot of possession between the lines, and that was why Flecken had so many because Man City took so many shots from just outside Brentford's back five. And honestly, I actually think that Brentford intentionally get out of the way. If they block Man City shots, it will lead to more corners and it would, lead to deflected shots that would not be good for Flecken. But they intentionally close a certain angle so that Flecken can scramble across and make the camera saves. And it's nice because if you look at the first half itself, literally all of his saves are in the same corner. It's quite nice. It's I don't know how deliberate this is because this is just pure speculation from me, but that's what I've noticed. The type of shots they conceded. Now, in terms of how City actually won the game, well, first and foremost, yes, KDB, Foden, they eventually dominated that central area heavily enough, such that and they created for Foden. I think full credit, right, goes to Foden for being a Cole Palmer. Turning into the number 9 into the second forward where needed. But still, it required some really pinpoint crosses for Foden to really take advantage. Honestly, I wish Kevin De Bruyne deserved that first assist. He deserved the assist for the first goal because it was cross there. Yeah, but whatever. That's my opinion. And
I
really,
thought he had it. I thought he was on a brace of assist by that second one. I was like, oh, nice. And then somebody texted me. I was like, no, that wasn't an assist. And I understand why it's not, but but I was hoping.
This is like That's my captain, damn it. So yes, City are back and they have multiple players occupying the spaces between the lines, and it's just a matter of whether they do it through crosses or through passes. I
So
think we just have to say though that Haaland is not exactly like match fit, running behind defenses match fit. Yeah,
mhm.
so and yes,
And
put Guardiola and Walker under watch list. They will be fantastic moving forward.
okay, so I'm gonna jump in here. What one on Kevin De Bruyne? I think one thing, I don't know whether it's, for me it's a little bit concerning, but it could end up being okay. About De Bruyne is he's not getting many touches centrally. It's all he's ping ponging from one side to another, and like doing like little creative moves with Guardiola or Foden or Bernardo Silva or whoever is close to him, and then moving and then orchestrating like that on that other side, and then maybe he'll get a cross in or something like that. But he's not in and around that central area of the box for him to take crosses himself. And I think that's quite concerning for such an expensive FPL asset. Um, on Holland, I completely agree. He's not the focal point yet, and he's not getting behind defenders. And it could be a function of the back three and all of that. So that one's a wait and see. And I just think honestly, this one just kind of fell for Foden. Like I think Foden owners are. I mean, he's a great pick. I'm not going to argue that, but this hat trick wasn't like wow, look at Foden dominating. He scored a hat trick. It was like, oh, Foden kind of fell into a hat trick. That's the way it felt for me watching it. And like he had few entries into the box, but the ones that he had were killer. He'd end up with a goal. But most of his work was kind of like wide on that left hand side and a little bit deeper outside the box. So not congratulations on that hat trick. And then the last thing, at 12 saves for Flecken, 1.3 expected goals prevented. So maybe he's shown something, although a lot of that, like you said, was from shots from further out.
Mm, I what's this? How do you say? I think you might want to filter the touches out. Like to include when Doku was on the pitch. I do believe that when Doku was on the pitch, KDB became a lot more central, although he was a lot more fatigued.
Hmm.
To argue the other way. Um, yeah, cause City didn't start with a winger. This like you should have been on Twitter before the lineups came out. Like all the leak content creators were like, "Whoa, Pep's on all out attack mode." They have zero
Hmm.
wingers. They decided to field Haaland, Alvarez, Foden, Bernardo Silva. all the big boys are starting, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, all out attack." Yeah. So I think Pep intentionally wanted to dominate the central spaces, but in a flexible way and have no
Hmm.
wingers. I think we'll see a different formation this coming week. One of Doku or Grealish will definitely start. Just a matter of where.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. We'll check on Alex at _MCFC to see what he thinks. I do kind of have a feeling it'll be Grealish. But if Ashley Williams, if Ashley Young is going to start for Everton again, then I mean Doku should eat him up, right? You play Doku and then you go for goal. So we'll see. Maybe we can get some info on that before the matchups show on Thursday with Craig.
Brentford. Almost
Yeah,
forgot. Yes.
Brentford.
Okay. So I've got something that I'm pretty sure stats won't pick up. You know how you mentioned that Vicario was not protected by his defenders on corners? Man City had a
Yeah.
slew of corners that put Flecken under pressure because Ruben Diaz literally stood next to Flecken the entire time. Guess who protected Flecken?
Hmm.
Take a guess.
Ben
Who
me.
protected Flecken on corners?
Ben me.
Neil Maupay, the little guy,
Oh, of course. That's right. Of course. Yeah. I remember seeing that.
standing in
Yeah. Good
between
for
Ruben
you.
Diaz and Flecken. He's
That's
just there,
true.
like, get away,
That's
get away,
true.
get away, get away. And he got in Ruben Diaz's face so much that the referee had to pull them apart.
Yeah. Yeah,
you
I
know,
remember.
and
That's a
Mopai
good
was
point.
getting angry at the referee, and then around the 20 something minute, right before the first goal was scored, Ivan Toney goes up to Neil Mopai and like whispers something in his ear and like reassures him something. I knew for sure that something was gonna happen after that. And goal kick, the fact that Tony doesn't even get involved and he just like leans into Ake just to make sure the entire space is vacated
Yeah,
for Mopai to run into, that is like, it's so deliberate
talk
and it's so real. No
100%. And
stat
talk
backing
about
that up.
well, that's what I was gonna say. Talk about deserving an assist, even more than De Bruyne's. I think Tony deserves an assist for that Brentford goal. I totally agree. And the one thing that I will say, I think Sergio Reguilon is a thing. He's everywhere. He's involved in their attack. I don't know. So I think that we disagree a little bit on that. In that I think Reguilon is one of the key components of this Brentford attack, and will be a bit of a gem going forward, especially in this back five system. I like that quite a bit. All right, I think that's it. Anything to add from you, my friend?
Uh, Stay safe. Happy Chinese New Year to those who celebrate. Yes, Happy Lunar New Year to those who
Yes.
celebrate.
Happy
Yeah,
Lunar
we won't
New
see you
Year.
guys
Whether
next.
you celebrate or not, Happy Lunar New Year. You're getting some props, some love on the show from K7. Lucien is so good. Yes, he is. That's how we get the depth we do on this show. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you to we have a new member, BW Splitta. Thank you very as you as well. Good chatting there. Nima driving the chat. This is a lot of fun. We will be back on Thursday. Until then, I don't know. Be well, be kind, and peace.